Brew Garage! Welcome back to Brew Garage. This episode we're going to install a cold air system and a cat delete pipe, good for about 12 horsepower. Let's take a look. Okay, let's start everything off with the installation of the cold air kit from GRP Racing Products. You get the air filter, the clamps, the silicone connectors, the milled centerpiece for the factory sensor, and of course the big intake hose. Here's everything all bolted up, including the intake rubber adapter. We're going to drop it all in one piece. Of course, before we put the new system in, we've got to pull the old one out. We have to pull a few hoses, more on this as we go along. Okay, this is the final installation of the fresh air intake system with the remote air filter and hose hooking up to the body vent. I don't have the original sequence on video because this modification was done long before we ever created Brutal Garage. So my apologies. Anyway, this is the factory plenum. You retain this piece completely. Everything from here back is aftermarket, except for the factory sensor, which we swap out. We did have to pull this hose to pull out the factory air box. Not a big issue. Okay, if you look all the way in the back there, you can see the hose snaking around. We show it to you in the pictures too, but we did have to pull the tire and the wheel well to do this. Just simple hose clamps attached to the back of the can, air filter setup, and also to the flange on the factory vent in the body. Now it's not sealed tight because rainwater has to get past that too without going down the hose and flooding the hose. You can see how much room this thing actually opened up when we took out the factory air box. Pardon if my camera shakes. But I think that opens up a lot of airflow. Now this can is just supported with a foam ring around it, and it sits in the cross member that runs this way and a diagonal that way, and basically just sits in there like that, and the rest of everything else holds it in place. So it doesn't move around, it doesn't rattle, and I haven't had any noise issues. Okay, the intake hose does its little snake thing up to the intake vent on the body, which is right here. And that's in the driver's side, of course. So when you've got the window down and you're on it a little bit in quiet mode, you can really hear the whine of the supercharger, and it is an absolute symphony for the ears. It's just terrific. However, when we're in sport mode with the cat delete pipe, it's really hard to hear over the cat delete pipe because that pretty much overpowers everything. With the tire off and the wheel well out, we drop the system in from the top. With everything all cinched up, you can see the final position of the hose clamped in place neatly. You can also see the filter housing resting comfortably between the cross members. There's no movement here. Let's give a listen. Let's hear how it sounds. Next up is the cat delete pipe. You can see it here compared to the original catalytic converter. I really like the flange on the GRP cat delete pipe because it's very, very close to the original cat flange. So your sealing is going to be fantastic. The next step, we have to remove the rear cover. Let's look at that. Again, sorry we don't have the installation sequence on video. This was done well before Brutal Garage was formed along with the other modification. In the future, we'll have more videos. So you have to pull this rear cover and only this rear cover, and you have about a dozen bolts, including the 2 Allen head bolts just above the exhaust stack coming out of the back of the car. It's pretty straightforward. Once you pull it down, everything is completely exposed. With the bottom cover removed, everything is exposed, and it's very easy to pull the catalytic converter. Just loosen the bolts, give it a good couple of wiggles, and it'll pull right out. That's not the hard part. What would be a lot harder is trying to put the delete pipe in at this point with everything still hung up in place. So I chose just to take the 4 bolts on each side, almost looks like a sway bar mount, into the chassis, holding this entire exhaust system in place. And that's all that's holding the entire exhaust system. So we go ahead and pull those bolts out, and the entire exhaust system comes out, and you can work it on a bench real easy and fit the cat pipe real easy, and that's the way we're going to do it. I was able to expand the catalytic delete pipe with a cheap expansion tool from Harbor Freight for about $16. It's a very familiar muffler expansion tool. It's good for a couple of uses. You coat the bolt with grease really well, and it did do the job. I didn't have to go to a muffler shop to expand the pipe, so it was worth the $16. Okay, now that we've got the exhaust on the bench, we can begin to look at it and work on it with ease. And at this point, all we have to do is slide the cat pipe into place, snug it lightly, and then we'll tighten everything once it's back into the car and realigned. And with everything slid into place, we tightened the bolts once the alignment is perfect, and we are finished. Go ahead and put the rear cover back on, and let's give it a listen between sport mode and regular mode. Okay, then that wraps up another episode of Brutal Garage. I hope you enjoyed it and it didn't leave too many questions. Please remember to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you'll get updates the next time we do another video. Thanks again for tuning in to Brutal Garage.